Welcome to the journal, episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about plateaus, a very common roadblock that we get to experience in our journey to become better players. Plateaus are something that everybody in video games get to experience, especially when we're trying to develop a skill. We're going to be facing constant ups and downs, winning streaks and losing streaks. Days where the game is wonderful, everything's going great, you feel on top of the world, and days where just don't even want to look at the game because you're losing constantly, you're getting way too angry, way too frustrated, and you cannot focus. All these problems are quite common to everybody, and it's pretty much part of the game, part of the cycle of becoming better players. Now, while the scenarios that we just talked about are quite easy to understand, they're pretty much black and white, there is another scenario which is a little bit more complicated for you to actually realize that you are, and it's way more complicated for you to get out of there, which are the plateaus. Now, this is gonna be a spot where you are being inconsistent. We win a match, we lose a match, we win 3, we lose 2, and so on. We get stuck in a back and forth of outcomes where our path is pretty much not moving forward, it's staying stagnant, and that means that we have hit a plateau. Now, a plateau is a state where the speed of our process is being reduced, sometimes even halted. As a new player, we are sponges of information. Everything is fresh and exciting. We are learning new things every day, and you can see a tangible improvement immediately. The knowledge that you are picking up feels like it doesn't stop. You're getting better and better and better and better. And there is so much information for you to digest that you can see it noticeably that you, every single day that you keep playing, you are picking up something new and you are becoming a much better player. Let's call this phase the honeymoon period. Everything is great and we are progressing at a really good pace, especially in a competitive scene. You can see the effects as you manage to notice things that the other new players haven't discovered yet, so your progression through the ladder is steady. But then you hit a wall. You aren't doing as great as you were doing before, and the matches are becoming harder and harder. Your win rate is gonna take a hit, and now it has become way tougher for you to maintain a positive record. Now, once we realize that we are in a plateau, now we have to work hard to try to get out of there to continue our progress. There are several methods that are going to help us in this case, but the one thing that we have to be completely aware of is that it's gonna take time, it's gonna take patience, and it's gonna take a lot of hard work from you. We have reached the peak of our current abilities, so now we have to work on our weak spots to continue our journey progressing through the ladder and becoming a better player. So we're going to need to break down the skills that we want to focus in order to make things easier for us. So we'll go by in-game right now. We're gonna start with positioning. From positioning, we want to work on creature and enchantment placement on the board, offensive and defensive strategies. From there we move on to damage allocation. That means an efficient damage calculation, creature repositioning to maximize the amount of damage that we can generate, and sometimes even passing turns without dealing damage to maximize the amount of damage that you can generate in the upcoming turn. Resource management and efficiency, so that means playing on curve, selecting the most efficient card to play on the current turn, considering the future plays, efficient burning, which is very important for you to get a hang on, and adequate use of gems and mana. We move on to the hardest one, which is decision making. So we have to analyze the ideal outcome for the turn. What are we going to do in a bad scenario? So when we're playing from behind, maintaining pressure and capitalizing mistakes that your opponent makes. So if you see that he made a misplay that you can take advantage of, you have to punish as hard as you can in order for him to lose tempo or sometimes even lose a match because of a minor misplay. We also want to learn how to play from ahead and how to play when we are behind. So that means maintaining pressure, recovering from when you are falling behind, and how to play on a defensive stance and an aggressive stance. So in order for you to continue applying the pressure or holding the fort until you can actually get back into the game and hopefully take it. Bluffing is going to be one of those that most likely is not going to start developing for you up until you actually have a way deeper knowledge of the game. So that one you don't have to worry too much about it, but it's going to be baiting spells, baiting creatures and enchantments, sometimes forcing engagements like making the opponent put themselves into a position that they have to react to a creature, or you can take the advantage. Sometimes it's gonna be like holding buffs that you have in your hand for the upcoming turn, expecting to see what's gonna happen in the opponent's turn, and then you apply your buff or your combination of spells to create an even bigger advantage to you. The last one is going to be foreshadowing, and it means about thinking of what could happen in the next turn or 2 turns ahead of you. Keeping an eye on dangerous turns like Magmator coming up, Thunderclap or Misanthropia will allow you to get the biggest amount of value that you can get out of your cards. Of course, sometimes it will happen that your cards are gonna get immediately removed out of the game. That's normal, that happens a lot, but if you can at least keep an eye on in the next turn he could play a Magmator, it's gonna help you a lot more to determine which cards you want to be playing at that turn or which cards you want to hold in order for the spell to come up and then you play it. Out of the game we have a couple other skills that we want to be working on, so skills like card evaluation, deck building, understanding the current meta, keep an eye that the meta will change with upcoming patches and hotfixes, card synergies, this is archetype understanding, so knowing how to play the archetype, the matchups, the ideal scenarios that you want to be putting yourself into, and how to play from behind and how to play when you're ahead. And of course the last one is going to be replay and play analysis. Thankfully the client has a fantastic replay system, so it allows you to go back into the last match that you played and analyze what you did well, what you did wrong, and how to improve. It's an incredible and super beneficial tool that you should be taking advantage of to become a much better player. So now that we have found a skill that we want to develop, we want to create a routine and a self-review system to keep an eye on the way that we are progressing through the skill work. Let's say positioning is something that we want to work on. So to begin with, we want to take a preliminary reflection to measure how we feel about our current skills. So we can ask ourselves a couple of simple questions to lay the groundwork. Questions like, how's my positioning? Where am I failing when it comes to positioning? What should I be paying attention to during the turn, during my turn, during the opponent turn? And what can we do to improve our current positioning issues? So now that we have a baseline of how do we have to approach this skill, we start to look for information and more knowledge in order for us to become better at the skill that we're working at. So written articles are going to be fantastic, video guides, discussions with friends and members of the community are going to be a fundamental part in order for you to become more knowledgeable in that skill, and it's going to help you to understand why you're failing and how to become better at that specific skill. So now that we gather some information and we are becoming more knowledgeable into the skill that we want to work on, we're going to start applying that knowledge into live matches. To make things easier for you, I would actually recommend you to maybe pick a sticky note and write the skill that you're working on and put it on your screen, so that way it prevents you from going into autopilot. Just look at the note a couple of times during the match to remind yourself what are we working on at the moment. Another thing that I recommend you is to practice on an increment manner. So especially if it's something quite complicated or challenging for you. So practice maybe 5 minutes a day, then you move on to 10, 15, and then in order for you to develop a habit instead of just forcing yourself to practice for hours throughout the day and then you get overwhelmed, you don't learn anything. Maybe you can even get frustrated, so it's easier for you to start slowly, and the more days that you're practicing, the easier it's going to become for you. Keep in mind that you're going to be making a lot of mistakes when you are trying to learn something new, so do not be too hard on yourself. You're going to be making quite a lot of mistakes and things that you might feel like it shouldn't be happening, but just push through it. You're going to notice that you're going to become better and better with the more time that you invest into practicing. I would also recommend you to actually make a journal and track the way that you are progressing, so that way you can see in a tangible manner how much better you are becoming. Consistency is pretty much the key that we want to be working on in here, so make a plan and stick to it, and eventually you're going to start seeing results. Then you can move on to another skill. You're going to become better way faster than you expect if you make an organized plan to attack the skill that you want to be working on. To conclude, I want to say that plateaus are going to be happening all the time. Even when you become a top tier player, you're going to find yourself hitting a plateau eventually. So if you already have a plan and a way for you to work through that plateau, it's going to be way easier for you to move on into your next step of improving. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves, with our current skill level and our expectations when it comes to how good we are. Ego is an obstacle of progression, so we have to be open to the idea that we are never in a finished state. We always have more room for improvement, and we have to continue seeking that improvement. So keep pushing on it, keep working on becoming a better player every single day, and just do not conform into your current skill level, because you can become much better than what you are at the moment. This one was a little bit more abstract, but that more complicated for me to explain it, so I hope that I managed to convey the message. But I also would love to hear your thoughts and your comments about the subject. How do you actually deal with your plateaus? How do you assemble or create a plan for you to work through your skills in order to become a better player? Please leave me a comment and we can continue discussing about this topic, because I really enjoy talking about becoming better players. I also want to remind you that I stream regularly, so swing by the stream whenever you have a chance. We can talk about anything about the game or anything about anything else. So I'm always hoping to have discussions with the viewers. With that in mind, have a wonderful day and I hope to see you in the next video.